You're watching 12 WKRC TV, a new generation of news. 12 Newsmakers starts now.
Good morning and welcome to Newsmakers. Regionalism has become the mantra of the late 1990s. In 1996, businesses and governments throughout northern Kentucky embraced Forward Quest, and in 1998, the larger business community launched the Metropolitan Growth Alliance, which is currently preparing its report. In another area, almost 2 years ago, the cultural community in the 8-county metropolitan area launched a regional planning process under the banner of the Regional Cultural Planning Committee. The recently released RCPC draft report claims that the cultural system drew 1.25 million out-of-town visitors in 1997, supported 10,000 jobs, and was responsible for $674 million in annual economic impact. As anyone might expect, the report recognizes the region's old, well-established arts organizations and their ability to draw visitors. In the performing arts area, the May Festival and the Opera. In the visual arts, the Cincinnati Art Museum. But even more importantly, the report calls attention to the importance of the smaller organizations, whether it's the Northern Kentucky Symphony, the Fitton Center in Hamilton, the Middletown Arts Center, all of which help ordinary people gain confidence in their skills to express themselves through the arts. The draft plan developed by the RCPC calls for action steps in 6 areas. These include stimulating cultural development by establishing a regional cultural development agency. Second, broaden the community participation by improving access to cultural activities. Third, strengthen support for arts education. Fourth, advance professional practice of the arts by strengthening cultural organizations and nurturing individual artists. Fifth, maximize the impact of cultural facilities through a process of informed facility planning. And sixth, develop Greater Cincinnati as a prime destination for heritage and cultural tourism. On the one hand, this topic deals with vitally important aspects of the life of our community, the individual lives of nearly 2 million people in our region. On the other hand, arts and culture are terribly underreported and dangerously misunderstood. As a result, we will devote all of Newsmakers to the RCPC report this morning. To help explain the report and its potential implications, I am joined this morning by 3 people active in developing the report or in developing the arts in our area. Jefferson James is the founder and artistic director of the Contemporary Dance Theater. She is also a member of the RCPC Steering Committee and has served on the Arts Allocation Committee for the City of Cincinnati. Chris Binkert is the Director of Marketing for the Fifth Third Bank and a member of the RCPC Steering Committee. Rod Nimtz is the Assistant to the Director of the Middletown campus of Miami University, where he has coordinated the Artist and Lecture Series for the last 13 years. He is also President of Arts in Middletown and a member of the board of the Middletown Convention and Visitors Bureau. Welcome to Newsmakers, and I fumbled a little bit in that introduction, and I apologize, but let's go from here. Now, Jefferson, one of the things that I want to get sort of straightened in my own mind right from the beginning, and Chris may chime in on this one too, since you've been both are part of the steering committee. I'm a little confused about definitions. It's the Regional Cultural Planning Committee. But, you know, what is culture and what is arts and what are we really talking about here? For example, a sentence that just jumped off of page 1 at me. Culture is the area's premier tourist attraction, drawing 1.25 million out-of-town visitors, which I cited before, more than the Cincinnati Reds, the Bengals, or the Cincinnati Zoo. Is the zoo in or out as a cultural organization? What's a cultural organization? What's considered part of this planning process?
We took a broad definition of culture to make our findings and to make our recommendations. And we left out the zoo in our numbers because it would sort of skew things a certain way. Okay. We're not saying that the zoo is not cultural or that cultural events do not take place there. Mm-hmm. But it was left out as part of the numbers so that we would concentrate on other things that are more easily identified as cultural and arts activities.
Because one of my primary professional identifications with the American Association of Museums, and zoos are obviously part of the museum community. So I was just a little confused. Chris, what about something like the museum center over at Union Terminal? Is that in or out?
I believe it's in.
Okay, so those numbers are counted, but zoo numbers are out.
Right.
I think it's important to know that we're trying to make a large enough tent to fit all of the appropriate arts and cultural organizations underneath there, but you have to make a fair apples-to-apples comparison to what it brings to our community.
Is there anything else out that maybe helps clarify this? Or is the zoo just really one of those? Is it out because his numbers are just so big? I'm just confused by that.
We weren't trying to make a particular gain of number. We didn't start out with a number that we had to reach. There are some organizations that would kind of hit that fine line, and we had to make a judgment call about what was in and what was out. I think the important part is that we've worked for 2 years to make this as clear and diverse and inclusive as we could make it. And we've made some judgment calls.
Okay.
The point being, building that regionalism, getting everybody to the table has been the work and the definite goal of this process all along.
Before I let go of the definitions here, one of the other things that I see sort of emerging as I would consider myself part of that cultural community, wearing my historian hat, is that there's more of a blurring of lines, and even in terms between not-for-profit and for-profit. So for example, in Newport right now, we see the development in a for-profit mode of an aquarium, even though the zoo is developing a not-for-profit aquarium, much smaller, at the same time. They're both going to open this year. And the 3D IMAX, which is a for-profit operation, is going to end up competing with the OmniMax, which is a not-for-profit at the Museum Center. So these lines are blurring, and did your commission attempt to deal with those kinds of issues?
Not directly, frankly.
No.
The aquarium, yes, is a for-profit, but they also have a 501c3 educational arm as well.
Okay.
But we did not dwell on those issues specifically.
Okay. Rod, you come from the Middletown area, and from Butler County generally,
Right.
but particularly from the Middletown area. Chris was mentioning that one of the really important aspects of this, and one of the things that really attracts me to this, is the attempt at regionalism here. From Middletown, how does a regional effort look from the Middletown perspective rather than from the perspective at Fountain Square?
I think there's a couple ways to look at that, Dan. Middletown, well, Butler Warren County, indeed, is sort of a land between two markets. We know this particularly from marketing points of view from arts organizations, that we are sort of caught between a Dayton and a Cincinnati focus. And as I-75 is gradually growing together, those lines will continue to blur. In the opportunities for audience development, to draw audiences to what we have to offer to the north, there is an excellent opportunity. What I was sensing when we attended the county conversations in Butler County Wednesday night, where for many of us this was the first time to look at the plan, was a certain concern for drawing audiences from the northern area of Butler Warren County down to a more centralized by the river. Would that be at the cost of the audience development to the north? So I think there's that concern there. But I think regionalism, particularly as it applies in the plan to the marketing that was discussed and the opportunity to develop perhaps a website that anybody can access, something along the lines of Cincinnati.com that would include these areas, would present an opportunity for audience development to the north. But again, that concern that is it going to be drawing everyone down away from those arts organizations which have existed there for 60, 70 years.
You know, one of the things you mentioned there was the fact that there's these county conversations that started this past week, but they're going to continue this coming week. And by the way, we are going to have information about where those are going to be and when they're going to be at the end of the show. So people who are interested in getting involved in this conversation can get involved, and that's one of the reasons to do the show this week. Jefferson, who has been involved up to this point? Who are the people that brought this together and really worked on this?
It's a large number of people. The plan as, not the plan, but the initial conversations about starting this project started over 2 years ago. And actually probably before that the city allocation committee and the city has been interested in having a regional presence or having a develop it.
Let's back up even there, because I'm not sure people know terminology. The Arts Allocation Committee, which you're a member of, it's the city of Cincinnati. We're talking regionally here. We got lots of cities.
Right.
This is the city of Cincinnati, right?
The Cincinnati Arts Allocation Committee is its formal name.
Okay.
And there has been regional discussion or talk about a regional plan and a regional assessing of the area for some time. So the Cincinnati Arts Allocation Committee was involved. Pro Arts, which was an ad hoc committee of arts advocates and arts professionals and interested people, and were involved. The Northern Kentucky Arts Council, and that sort of was the impetus for beginning the steering committee. We went to City Council to get Cincinnati City Council to get an initial startup funding, and then went to the outlying counties to get more funding and develop the steering committee with representatives from those areas and from arts organizations, educational institutions, government, business.
Okay. Chris, you also then went out and hired a consultant who did many things. As I understand it, phone interviews, all sorts of surveying. So really, how many people might have been touched by the collection of information around this?
To date, there's at least approaching 1,000 individuals have been approached. Hundreds of organizations have been approached. Yes, we did have an outside consulting group, the Bay Group, who helped us formulate and guide us through the conversations. But a tremendous amount of research was done from focus groups, individual interviews with both, again, the business community, the large and small arts communities, individual artists, performing artists, as well as representatives from every one of the 8 counties. So it's been a very inclusive and diverse process.
You know, you mentioned here, and it's been reported at times in this process, that there has been a split between the large institutions and the smaller organizations and individual artists. Now, you're not a member of, you're representing the business community and someone interested. In this process, has everybody been included in this? What's been the relationship of those various types of organizations?
I think it's been unprecedented to see large and small, individual artists, government, business, education, all sitting at the table. The first few meetings there probably were exploratory and everyone feeling their way along, but no one left the table. Everyone's still there. And after 2 years, you do begin to build trust. You do begin to realize that for it to succeed, it has to be inclusive. It has to be all parties. And without if any one of those had walked away, it would have crumbled, but it hasn't.
In the Middletown situation, first off, Jefferson was mentioning that the city of Cincinnati has an arts allocation budget. There is a little bit of money to give out to the arts community. Does Middletown have anything like that?
Middletown has some funding which is provided to Midfest International. It provides office space, and of course that's the annual fall festival, which draws, I believe it's in excess of 100,000, it's estimated each year, to Middletown. There is also a summer concert series in the parks, which is sponsored through the city plus sponsorship. Arts in Middletown as a facility service providing organization, Symphony, Fine Arts Center, Lyric Theater, Sorg Opera, Artist in Residence, Summer Youth Theater are all independent 501c3s that do not receive direct city funding. And the Middletown campus of Miami Artist and Lecture Series for 33 years has been through the support of the university.
Okay. So one of the things that you just rattled off that I think is helpful for those of us who may be in Cincinnati or in Hamilton County is the rich number of organizations, and you were just mentioning Middletown.
Right.
We could do that same thing in Lawrenceburg, we could do that same thing in Hamilton. There is a tremendous number of organizations. Couldn't we only have about a minute left in this segment, but can we say that the artists even in the area know each other? When this process started, did all the he mentioned all the artists up there and all the organizations. Is there a small arts community where you all know each other anyway?
Oh, we don't all know each other, but we're beginning to, and that's one of the things that this plan is talking about, is having a resource center and a directory so that we can find the artists that are in different areas that we would like to collaborate with or present or utilize. So we're beginning to know each other, and there are a lot of artists and a lot of arts organizations.
And when I went to the Hamilton County meeting the other night, that's one of the things I kept hearing was that, gee, we met people we never even knew existed. Hang on just a minute, we're going to be back. Stay tuned. After the break, we'll come back and explore issues about funding and how the concrete proposals in this plan may get implemented. Welcome back. We're going to continue this discussion about the RCPC report. One of the primary proposals in this is that, it's the #1 proposal, is to create sort of an umbrella group, a cultural planning commission. Is that the right term? Let me make sure I get Cultural Development Agency. I didn't get it right at all. What are the key, and there's a lot of things you hope it will do, but what are the key things you hope that new agency might do?
It's to develop a resource center. It's to develop a arts and cultural promotional office. It's to develop, help me out here, what are our other?
One of the keys here is that the purpose is to be an advocate for the arts and bring all the players to the table. One of the keys in the long-run success, of course, is going to be funding, and a lot of those questions are up in the air, but without a relatively singular voice, we won't have a chance to tap into the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana resources, governmental, private, and public, to give us the resources it'll take to carry the mission further.
Let's talk about funding. You said it's still up in the air, which I understand, but when you say tap into resources, what kind of resources are we talking that maybe haven't already been tapped? I mean, there's a lot of organizations out there scrambling to raise money to make it possible for their dance company or for their organization or for their arts effort to go forward. What new money might be brought to the table with this?
Well, I think it's fair to say it would be a combination of public, private, foundation, and business resources, as well as the individual budgets of some of the organizations that if the synergistic effect, the 2 and 2 is 5 or 6, can be communicated, that all the parties will want to participate and share in. If the sense is if we do this together and all the boats will rise, then I think there'll be a willingness to play and participate.
You know, one of the things that's put out here in this report, and sort of a bold vision, in fact, maybe the vision statement's still coming. I feel like there's something needs to be the big picture here, but one of the bold vision elements that is to declare that this area, the 8-county area, could become sort of the center of a super region in terms of culture, with Lexington and Louisville and Dayton and Charleston, I think, Indianapolis, and that this would be the center of that. Is that realistic?
Well, I think so. I can describe that one a little more in detail. I was part of the cultural tourism process here, and we really believe that if we brand Cincinnati as a cultural and arts destination, we will be able to communicate that clearly to places like Columbus, Dayton, Indianapolis, Lexington, etc., where it's only an hour or two's drive. We're within the voice and range easily of attracting many, many individuals, interested parties, participants, and their dollars and their interest to our community.
What would attract people? You say that there was 1.25 million, I think, is attracted from out of town, out of our area. I took that to mean out of the 8-county area into the area. What's attracting people into the area now, and what can be built on?
I think a variety of things are attracting them. Festivals, tall stacks, that sort of thing, but also symphony concerts, opera presentations. People even come from that distance to see some of my productions.
Contemporary dance.
Contemporary dance theater. Probably people come for one event and stay for others. One of the things that was pointed out is that people that come for cultural activities stay longer and go to more than one event, that they add that.
Rod, from Middletown, do you imagine people coming to Middletown, or does this sound attractive to you?
It's an interesting concept, Dan. It's something which on the Convention and Visitors Bureau in Middletown we have talked about. And at the time right now, in sort of the developmental stages, it's hard for people to imagine that we're going to come to see a community theater production of something. I think Jefferson hit on it. It's somebody who would come to see something in the greater Cincinnati area, but at the same time, there are also available other performances that may be taking place at Raymond Walters or UC Claremont Or at Miami's Hamilton campus, as last Thursday night was Altan, a great Celtic concert. They had people that came from Springfield and Columbus for that. So part of that marketing and information that gets out there. One thing that I heard Chris say, and I just want to jump on that just for a second, is I think we're going to have a sensitivity to referring to Cincinnati as opposed to the greater Cincinnati region. I think we're going to have some nomenclature issues here, because as we talk in regionalism, many of the smaller arts organizations are community-based, be it Middletown, be it Hamilton, be it Lebanon, New Little Symphony, and performances up there. Westchester and that growing area there is now developing their own arts councils. They have their own volunteer symphony that's forming there. So I think that some sensitivity to terminology is going to be involved here, so as people understand in building a win-win situation, it's not a focus on the Queen City, but on that 8-county region.
I got to tell you that at the meeting that I was at, which was the Hamilton County meeting, it was brought up that maybe even greater Cincinnati shouldn't be used, that was a problem.
Now, of course, there was no crossover except for the facilitator, but that was also at the Butler County session.
Yeah, so regionalism does have a problem. There still is, how do we mesh local interest and the big picture? This is, we all like to talk about regionalism, but these are tough issues, and it has to be hammered out in this area.
Well, you're absolutely right, and that sensitivity is there. Old habits may die a little hard, but until you start working at it and get used to getting in there every day and talking about these issues, those old habits won't go away. So you have to just keep at it. You have to crawl before you can walk, before you can run.
I think that raises the question is, if this doesn't happen, what are the implications? I mean, if you can talk about all the problems of making it work right, but if it doesn't happen, if we don't do something and get people cooperating, what happens? Are we talking about some of these other cities? Rather than us becoming the center, I'm very impressed by Louisville, especially its theater community.
I think Charleston, South Carolina is an excellent example as well. My perspective, Dan, would be that we would continue in a fragmented fashion with each area doing its own thing, trying to build its own audiences, and working with the same limited number of media outreach opportunities, as opposed to if we can come with a regional arts calendar that is readily accessible via the web, that is readily accessible via a listserv, that people throughout the Channel 12 viewing area could subscribe to a listserv, and they could get a weekly update to know what's coming up this week. Cincinnati.com has just introduced a new interactive calendaring program that you can go by date or by locality to find an event that if you want to go attend.
I think this is going to happen in this area. We're going to make this happen. Now, whether everything that's in the draft plan happens, but just the fact that this communication, this dialogue has been taking place is going to activate some of these activities, that there's going to be more communication, that we've started the regionalism process, and I'm passionate about the things that I get involved in, and that's what keeps the arts alive. And this is one of the things that this group has gotten very passionate about, and it's our chance in our lifetime, so we're going to make it happen.
One of the things people already know about, and how does it fit in? The Fine Arts Fund, the Arts Institute, how do the existing organizations and fundraising already fit into this? Will they be absorbed into this? Will they exist in a parallel situation? What happens? Chris?
I think the sense is, again, all in draft stages, but there are fine opportunities there. They have been extremely successful over the years in doing what they do. No one wants to really change that. No one either wants to add additional bureaucracy and red tape to the process. The fine balance here is to keep all that good news going and add the extra dimension of advocacy, resources, and uniform presentation of what we have to the regional market.
Well, listen, we've only scratched the surface, but if people want to get involved in this process, they can, and we want to put up some dates and times. This coming Tuesday at the Otterbein home in Warren County, there will be a discussion. All these meetings take place at 7 o'clock. Wednesday in Kenton County at the Carnegie Arts Center. On Thursday in Claremont County at UC Claremont. The following Tuesday, the 16th, in Campbell County at the Newport City Building, and on the next day, Wednesday, in Dearborn County Public Library in southeastern Indiana. So thank you very much for being with us. I hope people become involved and take this seriously, and we'll look to see what happens.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next Sunday when we will talk to the men and women shaping our area for the future.